The California Bureau of Investigation team, led by Agent Teresa Lisbon, arrives at a massive mansion that screams wealth from every marble column. The owner of the house, Jason Sands, a powerful banker and generous political donor, has been missing since the previous night. Inside, the scene is controlled chaos. Sands' wife, Jennifer, and their young daughter Julie returned home to find Jason's private office destroyed, furniture overturned, and a deathly silence where the man of the house should have been. At the center of the room, a local inspector, bloated with self-importance and clearly on the defensive, tries to take command. In a condescending tone, he asks Lisbon what the CBI is doing there, insisting this is just a routine kidnapping and that it is only a matter of time before a ransom demand arrives. Patrick Jane, wandering through the room with his hands in his pockets and that enigmatic smile that irritates every cop around him, watches the inspector with a mix of pity and amusement. Without saying a word, Jane starts reading the room. While the inspector rambles on about procedures, Jane stops beside a pair of overturned chairs. He crouches down, touches the leather, and notices marks of strain. Calmly, he cuts through the technical discussion and drops a bombshell. Jason Sands never left the house. He is still here. Jane explains that Sands was tortured in one of those chairs and forced to reveal a code. His eyes lock onto a painting of several yachts hanging on the wall. He studies the numbers printed on the sails, a sequence that looks decorative to anyone else, but for the banker was a mnemonic device. Jane walks to a remote control, presses the numbers with surgical precision, and suddenly the gears of a heavy grandfather clock creak loudly. The clock slides aside, revealing a hidden door. When they open it, the horror becomes clear. Jason Sands lies dead on the floor of his own panic room, which has become his tomb. Days later, the team attends the funeral, an event soaked in hypocrisy and expensive perfume. Jane stays apart from the crowd, watching not the coffin, but the living. His attention settles on Jennifer, the widow, who is having a tense private conversation with the family lawyer, Michael Bennett. The forensic report confirmed what Jane already suspected. Sands did not die from a quick gunshot. He slowly bled to death inside his own panic room after being tortured with pliers and lit cigars. Jennifer and Julie have a solid alibi. They were at a performance of Peter and the Wolf and still have the tickets, but Jane notices something in Jennifer's body language. He cannot tell if Bennett is protecting her or threatening her. There is a strange electricity between them that smells like a shared secret. As they watch from a distance, the CBI team dynamic comes to the surface. Jane, Cho, and Rigsby discuss Rigsby's obvious feelings for Agent Van Pelt. With his usual playful arrogance, Jane claims seducing a woman does not require magic tricks, only love and affection. To prove it, he offers Rigsby a $100 bet. Jane says he can seduce any woman at that funeral, even in the middle of mourning. Certain he has already won, Rigsby picks the least likely woman possible, the widow herself, Jennifer Sands. Without hesitation, Jane approaches Jennifer. He starts softly, offering condolences that sound sincere, but quickly shifts the conversation. Looking straight into her eyes, he tells her how beautiful she looks. She calls the comment inappropriate, though her outrage feels forced. When Bennett steps in to defend his client, Jane orders him to back off with cutting authority. Turning back to Jennifer, Jane quietly tells her he does not know what kind of hold the lawyer has over her, but if she is in trouble and chooses to call him, he will help her. The situation escalates fast. Several men rush forward to defend the widow's honor, and Cho and Rigsby are forced to physically drag Jane away. As they pull him out of the cemetery, Jane wears a look of complete satisfaction. He planted the seed and got exactly the reaction he wanted. The backlash comes quickly. Back at CBI headquarters, Director Manelli unloads his fury on Lisbon and Jane. Jennifer Sands has filed a formal complaint with the Attorney General. In a rare moment of brutal honesty, Manelli admits he only tolerates Jane's eccentric behavior because he solves cases nobody else can, but this time he crossed the line. Then, in the middle of the lecture, Manelli's phone rings. It is the Attorney General's office. Jennifer is willing to drop the complaint, but under one non-negotiable condition. Jane must come to her house and apologize in person. When Jane arrives at the Sands mansion, he finds little Julie playing alone. Instead of looking for Jennifer immediately, he He sits on the floor and starts playing with Julie and her dolls. During the game, he learns Julie named one of her trolls Wendy. When Jennifer finally appears, the atmosphere changes. They sit together and, dropping the outrage she displayed at the funeral, she admits she truly needs help. She reveals that Bennett gave her devastating news. Her husband's financial empire was an illusion, a scam that left them completely ruined. The house must be sold, and both the IRS and the SEC are closing in. Still, Jennifer is convinced Jason, despite all his lies, must have hidden a nest egg for them somewhere, and she begs Jane to find it before the authorities or Bennett. While Jane earns Jennifer's trust at the mansion, the CBI team uncovers the real Jason Sands. Lisbon and Cho expose the financial truth. The banker was not only bankrupt, but for the last 5 years his business had been a front for criminal activity. Yet one detail does not fit the image of a ruined man. During the last year, Sands strategically moved $10 million in cash, stocks, and bonds into his personal accounts. More disturbing still, only weeks before his death, that fortune simply vanished. Lisbon decides to confront Bennett, the lawyer. She finds him in a cold, professional setting. Bennett distances himself from Sands' dirty business, claiming he only handled his personal affairs and knew nothing about the full extent of his debts. According to him, the accountants warned that Sands had converted $10 million into liquid cash. When Bennett asked him about it, the banker only answered with a cryptic smile, saying he had a surprise for Jennifer. To the lawyer, the conclusion is obvious. Sands was laundering money to fund a solo escape and leave his legal troubles behind. But the investigation takes an unexpected turn thanks to Van Pelt. After tracing activity from Sands' shell company, she discovers its main client was a mysterious firm called Happy Landings Entertainment, based in Oakland. The strange part is that Sands handled this business through a completely separate corporate address from the rest of his operations, working out of a dock in Sausalito Bay. The team, minus Van Pelt, who stays behind coordinating from headquarters, heads to the Sausalito docks. Between luxury yachts and the smell of saltwater, they locate Sands' vessel, a massive boat called Princess. Once aboard, they find the inside completely trashed, as if a hurricane tore through the cabins searching for something small and valuable. Jane, moving with his usual reckless curiosity, drifts away from the group and suddenly finds himself staring down the barrel of a revolver held by a young woman. The tension breaks when Lisbon and the others burst in with badges raised. The woman lowers the gun, though her stare remains ice-cold. She introduces herself as Adriana and, to everyone's shock, claims to be Jason Sands' fiancée. Adriana, speaking with a heavy Eastern European accent, is hostile and sarcastic. Lisbon quickly senses the woman will not respond well to female authority, so she sends Van Pelt outside and lets Jane take the lead. In the intimate atmosphere of the cabin, Adriana opens up. She says she is a dancer and model and had been secretly involved with Sands for 2 years. According to her, they were engaged, and Jennifer knew perfectly well her husband planned to leave her. The reason she was tearing apart the boat is simple. She was looking for $10 million in diamonds that Sands bought a month earlier as a life insurance policy for their new future together. Adriana flashes her engagement ring, suggesting it is only a sample of that fortune in gemstones. According to her, Sands knew his time was running out. He was either headed to prison or destined to die at the hands of his associates. In exchange for avoiding charges for breaking into the boat, Adriana gives up the names of the men she believes squeezed Sands the hardest: Dieter and Carter, 2 dangerous nightclub owners in Oakland. She claims Sands laundered the dirty money from their drug and prostitution operations, and lately the numbers stopped adding up. Cho investigates the suspects and confirms the profile: hard men who started with legitimate hotels before sinking deep into organized crime. They own nothing under their own names and have no fixed address, moving like ghosts. Before Adriana leaves, Jane stops her. He asks a question that seems out of place but cuts straight into the psychology of the case. What about Julie, Sands' daughter? Was Adriana really willing to tear a little girl away from her mother and take her to another country? To Jane's surprise, Adriana answers with complete honesty. She says she loves Julie, and that Jennifer is a cold, distant mother with no real connection to her daughter. Before leaving, she throws out one poisonous thought. Didn't you ever think Jennifer might have the diamonds? Jane returns to the mansion to speak with the widow. At the same time, Cho discovers Dieter has been hiding properties under his grandmother's name, finally giving them a lead to track the suspects down. Inside the Sands house, Jane adopts a casual but deadly tone. He asks Jennifer something simple about the Peter and the Wolf performance she supposedly attended, then immediately reveals the truth about the $10 million in diamonds and Adriana's existence. Jennifer, visibly shaken and emotionally broken, walks toward Jane and whispers, "I need someone to hold me, please." It is a moment of extreme vulnerability, but Jane, who can smell manipulation a mile away, remains perfectly still, refusing any physical contact. Rigsby and Van Pelt manage to capture Carter and Dieter in a swift operation. Inside the interrogation room, Dieter stays defiant. He claims that if Sands really owed them money, they would have collected it and kept the banker alive to continue laundering cash. "Somebody got to him before we did," he says with absolute confidence. He also describes Adriana as a mercenary draining Sands for everything he had. With the two main suspects now in custody but their alibis beginning to hold up, the case starts to stall. Then the crisis explodes. Jane receives a frantic phone call from Jennifer. Julie is gone. At the mansion, lying on the little girl's pillow, is a classic and terrifying ransom note. "You know what we want. Tell the police and she dies. Wait for our call." The atmosphere inside the house turns suffocating. The local inspector storms back into the situation, but this time Jane is not amused. He studies every corner of the room, every movement from the mother, searching for cracks in the story. Jennifer begs them to bring her daughter back, swearing she does not have the diamonds and has no idea why the kidnappers believe otherwise. Back at CBI headquarters, the tension reaches its peak. The team analyzes Dieter and Carter's situation, but comes to the conclusion that those thugs lack both the infrastructure and intelligence to coordinate a kidnapping from inside jail cells. Van Pelt, eyes locked on her computer screen, intercepts a signal. The kidnapper sent an instant message to Jennifer's phone asking if she has what they want. Taking control immediately, Jane orders Jennifer to answer yes and tells them he will personally deliver the payment. Then he makes a sharp declaration, "I know where the money is." Soon after, we see Jane sitting alone inside an SUV, waiting at the meeting point. The original plan is to get the kidnappers' number so the team can trace it, but chaos erupts when the vehicle door swings open and Adriana slides inside, pressing a gun against Jane's head. She is frantic. She insists she is not the kidnapper, but says she received photos on her phone showing Julie tied up and gagged. "I don't want Julie to die," she says, her voice breaking. The kidnappers contacted her too, demanding she deliver the diamonds in exchange for the little girl's life. Keeping an almost unnatural calm, Jane uses a bag of fake diamonds and his flawless gift for psychological suggestion to disarm Adriana and take her phone. In one quick move, he forwards the number to the CBI. The trace leads them to a rundown apartment building. Van Pelt, Rigsby, and Cho kick the door open with guns raised and find Michael Bennett standing there with a weapon drawn. But the bigger shock comes when Julie calmly walks downstairs, completely unharmed and showing no signs of abuse. Gunshots explode through the building as the screen cuts to black. After the confrontation, the story shifts to the hospital. Minnelli arrives demanding answers. Lisbon informs him that Bennett is their man. He killed Sands trying to steal the $10 million and after failing to find them, kidnapped Julie to pressure whoever had the diamonds. Bennett is in critical condition, and the odds of survival are almost non-existent, which, as Jane notes with irony, is very convenient. Still, Jane has one final card left to play to uncover the whole truth, because one question remains unanswered. Who was Bennett's accomplice, the mistress or the wife? In the hospital waiting room, Jennifer and Adriana come face to face. The tension is electric, and insults fly instantly. Adriana brags about getting released on bail because she sleeps with better lawyers, while Jennifer stares at her with cold aristocratic disgust. Then Cho walks in and throws out bait. He asks whether either of them knows someone named Wendy who might be important in Julie's life. Adriana immediately asks if that person has the diamonds. Jennifer, meanwhile, simply repeats, "Diamonds, with fake confusion. A moment later, Van Pelt enters and announces Bennett is about to regain consciousness, and if either woman has a message for him, now is the time. Cho and Van Pelt step outside and celebrate with a quick high five for their performance. Jane told them to wait and let the pressure do the work. When Rigsby returns to the waiting room, both women are gone. Lisbon and Cho rush toward Julie's hospital room, expecting to catch the guilty one trying to silence the child or recover a clue. Instead, they find Adriana kneeling beside Julie's bed, genuinely comforting her. And in that instant, Jane knows. It is not the mistress, it is the wife. The scene shifts back to the Sands mansion. Jennifer storms inside, races up to Julie's room, and begins tearing apart toys and furniture in a frenzy of greed. Jane appears in the doorway, watching her with a mixture of pity and triumph. He tells her the game is over and that Bennett confessed everything before dying. The second Jennifer realizes she is trapped, the mask disappears. The grieving widow vanishes, replaced by a cold, bitter woman. She admits she manipulated Bennett into helping her torture her own husband. Jane reveals the fatal mistake that exposed her. When he asked about the Peter and the Wolf performance, she could not answer basic details. The Mentalist realized Jennifer never attended the concert at all. She sent the nanny with Julie while she stayed home with Bennett, torturing Jason to force him to reveal where the money was hidden. A flashback shows the brutal truth. Sands, bleeding and terrified, managed to escape his attackers and lock himself inside the panic room, choosing death over surrendering the fortune. Jennifer explodes with hatred. She could not stand the idea of her husband running away with that whore, and even worse, she could not bear that her own daughter preferred Adriana over her. Then Jane, in one final moment of insight, looks up. As police sirens echo outside, he points out that the diamonds had always been right in front of her, hidden inside the crystal pieces of the chandelier hanging from Julie's ceiling. Jason once said he made that room for her, and he meant it literally. Jane admits he suspected Jennifer from the very beginning, all the way back at the funeral. His reasoning is purely aesthetic and psychological. No widow should glow that much at her husband's funeral. Meanwhile, despite Jane's encouragement, Rigsby once again misses his chance to ask Van Pelt out, leaving the romance hanging in the air while Jane stretches out on his couch, satisfied that he finally saw through the mask of the lady in red. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't stop here. Check out the other Mentalist episodes on the channel and watch the full playlist in order to follow Patrick Jane's best cases from beginning to end.